At Pixium Vision, we're creating a world of bionic vision for those who've lost their sight. We are a public company, so be mindful of any forward-looking statements. So what do we mean by creating a world of bionic vision for those who've lost their sight? Our primary target indication is the dry form of age-related macular degeneration. And what you see in the image on the left is the typical presentation of a patient at the time they come to us for implantation with our device. They actually maintain peripheral vision, but they lose their central vision. So they can ambulate in a space, okay, they can situate themselves, but they're not able to read or recognize faces. Actually, this is a disease of the aging. It can be quite debilitating for these patients. After implantation, the image you see on the right is typical of the type of vision that patients will have after treatment with our technology, which is called the Prima system. The platform will allow the patient to maintain peripheral vision, but will restore central vision as you see in the image there. It's an extremely large and fast-growing untapped market. Most recently, there was a drug that was approved in the US for slowing down the progression of the disease, but there is no therapy today that can restore vision once the patient actually loses their central vision. If we look at the potential here, we're concentrating first on Europe, the 5 large countries in Europe and in the US. There are 64 million people that have both forms of AMD, the wet and the dry form. If you look at late dry stage AMD with geographic atrophy, that's the target patient population for us. There are roughly 1 million patients, and those that have a visual acuity of 2300 or worse, which are the patients that would respond to our therapy, represent around 250,000 patients. 22,000 new patients annually at a target price for the treatment of around $80,000 or euro gives you a market potential of 1.6 billion. Just a brief sort of anatomy lesson so you'll understand how our technology works. In dry AMD, the photoreceptor cells in the deepest layer of the retina no longer function. Those cells are actually responsible for converting light into an electrical signal that can be interpreted by the visual cortex of the brain, which allows us to actually see. In this disease, the photoreceptor cells no longer function, so light comes in, but there's no cell to treat it, and so the patient will see a dark spot in their central field. With our technology, we implant a small implant, almost like a solar panel, in that layer of the retina, and it does exactly what the photoreceptor cells are supposed to do. It will convert light into an electrical signal. Here's a word on the technology itself. There are 3 communicating components. On the left, you see the implant, which goes in the retina. It's in the center of the penny there. I'll talk a little bit about it in a moment. And that implant requires wearables in order for it to work. And so the patient wears a set of smart glasses with a camera projection module mounted on it and a pocket computer, which are the brains of the operation. Here is the implant itself. It's 2 by 2 millimeters in size. It has 378 independent functioning electrodes. There is no battery. It communicates wirelessly with the smart glasses. It comes preloaded in a precision implant delivery device that allows for minimally invasive placement of the implant. We have patents protecting both the implant itself and the manufacturing process. We have implant durability testing that we have published that shows 10+ years of in vitro lifetime, and now we're coming up on 30 years of accelerated aging. So average time of implantation or age of implantation for these patients is around 72. If the implant lasts 30 years, the implant in most cases will outlast the patient itself. The implant was actually developed by Stanford University, and Pixium today enjoys a very close research and development collaboration with the university. We licensed all the rights for this implant, both for all indications and all geographies around the world. So now I'm going to explain how the technology works in this animation here. Here you can see the retina. The photoreceptor cells no longer function. The surgeon creates a small incision, and they will inject the implant in the subretinal space. They'll apply silicone oil or gas, similar to retinal detachment surgery. The patient will come back 4 weeks later. Once the retina heals, we put the glasses on. The camera on the glasses will capture the image. We'll send it to the pocket computer, which will simplify the image and convert it into a light signal, which is then transferred back into the implant wirelessly. The implant then will convert that light signal into an electrical signal, which is then perceived by the visual cortex of the brain and the patient then will see the image we've created for them. So this implant and wearables, the technology is really based on virtual reality or augmented reality, algorithms, and image simplification. After the implantation, they go for a series of rehabilitation sessions where they learn how to use the system, and they actually learn how to have their visual cortex of the brain perceive the images that we're creating for it. First, the rehabilitation starts in the clinic, and then they're able to continue rehabilitation at home through a remote rehabilitation module that we've incorporated in the system itself. Now just a few videos of some patients. Here you can see a patient that's been implanted, but they're wearing their regular glasses. They're not actually using our system, and they can see that there's a scribble of letters in front of them, but they're not capable of seeing the word elephant. They actually progress then, once they wear the glasses, they're able to identify letters, and then they do more complicated tasks, such as reading train schedules, and then actually reading signs outside of a hospital. Here you see a different patient that's actually reading a magazine here, and again, these patients are legally blind, so they cannot do this without the system. This patient actually has developed quite fluid reading skills using the system. And here we have a patient in the UK, I believe, that's actually playing cards for the first time since they've used the system, incapable of doing that without, and they're actually able to identify the numbers or any letters that are on the card. So there the patient just saw 2. You can see it in the box on the right. And then the next card they'll draw, you will see that it is, in fact, a king. So this device allows patients to regain a certain quality of life, which is very important, especially in the aging patient population. So here you'll see, just in a second, you see the K in the black box on the right there, and so they've seen a king. And in fact, in this case, the patient had a better hand than the person they were playing with. So where are we currently? In Europe, we are in the final stage, observational phase of our final pivotal study. So we've implanted all patients. We've enrolled and implanted all of them. We expect to have data at the end of this year, and we will file CE mark in 2024, at which time we believe we'll be the first company to have an on-label approval for vision restoration in advanced dry AMD. In the US, we had started our phase 2 study. The FDA now has asked us to progress to our final study, and we are in discussions with the FDA. We expect to start that study in early 24, and then regulatory submission at the end of 26. We have ongoing future developments as well with Stanford. At this point now, we have a next generation of implant that's been published in animal testing that actually shows a 5x greater resolution than the current implant, which will allow patients to actually recognize people's faces. With Zoom, we believe that we can restore vision to near normal 20/20 vision. We have 5 peer-reviewed publications and another one expected in 2023. And again, I mentioned previously that our key milestones are data readout in Europe the end of this year, CE mark filing early next year, and then in the US, beginning our pivotal study early next year. We have an experienced team with a collective knowledge in medical device. We're working with all the top key retinal specialists and hospitals in Europe and the US. And the company is currently looking to raise around $20 million or euro, I guess it's almost the same, to finalize the data readout in Europe and then begin our pivotal study in the US and begin ramping up for commercialization. Thank you.